Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Hugo and today I bring you my favorite books of 2020. It was an amazing year for me in terms of reading. I read amazing books this year. I'm so excited to talk about them with you, to chat and to show you what were my favorite books from this year in my reading tastes. The first book I want to talk about, and it's definitely my favorite book of 2020. It deserves all the hype that it has over the last years, and I only read it this year, but here it is. The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I cannot say how much I love this book. I love the characters, I love the plot, I love the twists, I love the construction, I love how it was made. Everything about it, the setting from the 50s to 60s, the glamour of Hollywood, all the things that it's amazing, it's so good, I really loved it. Let's talk about the plot. If you don't know the story, this follows Monique, who is a worker on a magazine, and she's chosen by Evelyn Hugo, who is a famous actress from the 50s, 60s and I think 70s, to do an interview because Evelyn Hugo is auctioning her gowns to a cancer foundation. In the beginning of the book, we don't know why Monique was chosen, and that is one of the questions that will follow all of the book. Why was Monique the chosen one to do the interview? And the second question is, who was Evelyn's true love? Because she was married 7 times, so one of them must be her true love. And then why the others? But the things are not what it seems. So Monique is chosen to do the interview, but when she arrives at Evelyn's place, she learns that it's not her interview. Evelyn doesn't want to do an interview. Evelyn wants to write her biography, and it's chosen Monique for some reason. She doesn't want any rights, and Monique is very surprised why that happened. And that is the main story. We'll be listening Evelyn telling her story with all the bad and the good, as she says, and giving her some advice to Monique. I love the book because, as I said, Evelyn was a well-written character. She has flaws. She is not perfect. She assumes that she made terrible things to grow up in her career. She doesn't have shame because she as she says, she had to do because she had to if she wanted to be someone. We grow as Evelyn grow. We see the traumas, we see the dramas, we see how she manipulates people around her to get what she wants, how she is the person she is today, and we learn a little bit of her life lessons, and I think that is what is important, because and Monique will take out some lessons that Evelyn had so she can learn from Evelyn's mistakes instead of making the same mistakes. I love the writing style. I listened this in an audiobook and I love the narration. It was amazing. The plot is so well designed through the time. It goes to the interesting things. Of course, this is a different reality because Evelyn Hugo and the other actresses did not exist, but the setting and how Evelyn was created as a character, she's a manipulation of the greatest actresses. You have Elizabeth Taylor for The Seven Husbands. I think we can see a little bit of Marilyn because of the bombshell and how she was seen as a sexual object. We see a lot of the principal traits of great actresses from the 50s and the 40s and the 60s, and I love the book. I don't know how to explain you how much I love this book. It was an amazing journey. It is a book that will stay for me with forever, definitely, and I understand perfectly why it's so hyped and why people love it so much. Another book that make my top list, and this was my first audiobook, my first LGBTQ book, and I must say it was amazing. It was Red, White and Royal Blue by Casey McKinsey. This book follows the story of Alex, who is the son of the first Latin female president of the United States, and Henry, Prince of England, the third to the throne. This book can be labeled as hate to lover romance. I didn't believe in that. I listen and I think the hate to love trope, it's not an element to be taken as a main characteristic of the book. I think it's more the catalyst, because they start as enemies and Alex despises Henry without knowing why. He's just like, he's arrogant, he doesn't have a personality, he's just someone that I don't like. And when they are in Henry's older brother wedding, Alex starts to fight because I think he's drunk at the time, and they get photo, they destroy the cake. So both countries have to find a plan so they can show a little bit to the press they are friends, and it was just, oh, it was some silly stuff, but we are really friends. And in that journey, Alex learns a little bit more of Henry, and Henry learns a little bit more of Alex, so they begin a friendship. They start trading emails, they start to having conversations, and they start to fall in love after that in New Year's Eve. And we see the problems with Henry being a royal, Alex being the son of the female president who is going to be in an election in 2020. We have a lot of problems with that, and they have a lot of problems with the royal family. It doesn't allow gay relationships, and they have a lot of obstacles to overcome. The press, the paparazzis, everything. I love how the characters were designed too. I think Alex is the perfect example of what I call a trash mouth. He just says everything that he wants, he doesn't think, and after he says, it comes to his mind and says like, what the hell did I do? It was stupid. But I love him because it gives him a sense of innocence, and it's not innocence, but it gave him a sense of, well, I wasn't to be mean, just spit out of my mouth. And he's discovered of being bi because he doesn't label as, oh, I had a heterosexual relationship and now I'm in love with a guy, so I'm gay. No, he's a bisexual. He loves both genders. And the friends that he has, his sister, his ex-girlfriend, best friend, because now she's a best friend. And there's a scene that I really love, that she comes out and she says, what? You didn't know you were bi? I was like, what? This is amazing. I loved it. Alex is an amazing character. I think we follow him a lot and we will start to see him a little bit better. There are scenes that you say, you are stupid. You are not thinking. And then there were scenes that, okay, that was cute. You win a point on that. And Henry is a character that you see how the environment and how your family can shape your personality. A lot of the negative review that I saw was about how Henry doesn't have a personality. He has a personality, but he's confined to the standards of the royal family. He can choose his favorite author, he can choose the favorite quote. He has to be restricted. It can be against the monarchy, it can be a socialist, it can be a communist. He has to follow certain rules, and he can show emotion. He has to be always in the straight path, and that shapes. And he has a sister who had a lot of problems, so the family is already on the press because of that, and he was shaped in a mold that make him suppress all the feelings and all the emotions that he wants to share, because he's a very sensitive guy. He's very introverted because of that, but he shows emotions. He can be happy, he can be funny, he can be a lot of sentimental. He's a lot of things, but he's suppressed by the family, which is not a good thing. Another great thing about this book is the side characters, which are so important to the story as the main ones. You have Zara, who is so sassy, and I love when she finds out about them and she's like, I kill you both. It's amazing how the characters, even Alex's mother, she's a badass. She's sassy. She even threatened his own son, like, you do something stupid, I'll get you the FBI to put you on an island or something like that. I loved it every single minute. I was in my bed listening to the audiobook. I burst laughing with some scenes. Other scenes make me like feel what they feel, and it was so good. I really recommend if you are looking for the contemporary romance. It's definitely beautiful romance. It shows how you can grow and shows how a relationship goes from baby step to baby step, and how you try to overcome the problems. I really recommend this book. Another book that I consider one of the best of the years, he has already a review here on the channel. The link will be up here and down below in the details, is My Grandmother Sends Her Regards and Apologies by Frederick Backman. and as I said in the review, I knew Pac-Man could destroy emotionally the persons who read their books, but I didn't expect this one to go so much depth. If you're looking for a character-driven book and about character emotions, character relationships, and human relationships, more than that, if you're looking for how to find common ground on certain aspects, this is the book for you. I totally recommend. I love the characters, I love the story, I love the writing. I found myself laughing in one minute, crying in another. Elsa is one of the greatest persons to follow while you're reading the book. It's amazing. The plot of her being left with a mission from her grandmother who died to send her regards and apologies and unite the people to protect the castle, that we don't know what is the castle. It's amazing how she can connect to the others and how she make them all find something in common to fight for and to start grieving and start showing the love they have for each other, and especially for Elsa. So I definitely recommend this book if you're looking for something that is much more about the human relationships that is from a plot. Another book is Coraline by Neil Gaiman. I heard the audiobook. It was narrated by Neil Gaiman itself, and it was the creepiest thing you ever heard. There are some scenes that are very spooky, but at the same time they are brilliant. And I loved how this book is shaped. This edition is the illustrated one. I already show it has amazing designs. If you don't know the story about Coraline, Coraline is, I think she's like 12 years old, and she's moving to a house with her parents because her parents are writers of books about flowers and something like that. And she's very bored with her life. The parents don't give her so much attention. The neighbor above her house, it's a Russian who trains the circus of mice. The bottom neighbors are two actresses, very older age, who are very eccentric. And there's a boy. I don't think there is a boy. There's a boy. Yeah, I think there is a boy. Yes, there is the boy, but the boy in the movie plays a different role. But there's a boy who grandmother says don't go in the house because the grandmother knows something happens there. So in one night, Coraline follows the mice to a closed door that she finds early, and that door leads her to the other world. The other world have the other people, who has the other mother, the other father, the other neighbors, who are very different and much more pleasant. The other mother cooks for Coraline delicious foods. The other father makes her a gardener very beautiful, shaped for her. The actresses put these amazing shows, and the circus of mice is amazing. Everything is good, but there's a twist, and the other mother wants Caroline to be there, but she has to sew buttons in their eyes because that's how they are. They have buttons in their eyes instead of eyes, and she discovers that the fantasy world is not so much for her joy, but more or less a trap. I loved Neil Gaiman's imagination. I loved how spooky this was, but at the same time how fantastic, and how it was captivating from the beginning to the end. There were some scenes that in the audiobook you hear the amazing voices that were cast, and the editing is amazing. And it's definitely one spooky book, because if that happened to me, I'll be very afraid of. I definitely recommend, and for me it's one of the best books because for the genre and for the story, it's so innovating and so different that it's amazing, and I really enjoyed it. So here is Coraline. So next best book of the year that I want to show is from a Portuguese author, and is João Tordo with A Mulher que Correu Atrás do Vento, The Woman Who Ran Beneath the Wind. And this is a contemporary romance and follows 4 different times. We go to 1892 in Baviera, where a professor of piano falls in love with an autism boy who is a prodigy in the piano, and she tries to help him compose some pieces. We skip up to 1973, where Graça Boyard, an actress, flee to London and gives birth to a daughter, Leah, who after she abandoned, and Graça proceeds her career as an actress in Portugal after the 25th of April, the revolution in Portugal. We skip to 1991, in Lisbon, where a college student, I think she's yes, a college student named Beatrice, falls in love with an author who wrote a book about the pianist, the teacher that lived in Baviera, and they have a not so healthy but a very passionate romance. And she works and at a soup for the poor, and she met a homeless girl named Leah. You can see the connections. So, and then we skip to 2015, where Leah is in a therapist and talking about the problems with her mother and everything else. This book is so full of emotions. It's so full of characters that have problems. Graça, who fought for her life, Leah, who struggled in the streets and has to make amends with her past, Beatriz, who has that relationship who breaks her piece by piece. We have the professor who, Elizabeth, takes advantage of this innocent boy and at the same time protects him. But it's a book with a lot of issues, but also with a lot of character points and character growth and relationships and problems. It goes from the 1892 to 2015, so it passed through time. It tackles a lot of social problems. It was captivating reading from the beginning to the end. I thought it was so good. What I loved about this book was the connections that we have between all the characters, the issues that will be addressed as the pain, the grief, the hate, the ambition, the envy, the sexual tension. There is a lot of this in this book. It makes you want to read more, to unfold all the story, to unfold all the potential about these characters, about who they are and how they will end. The thing that it goes from skipping time to time, you never know how the characters will end and how each of one is important. The end is just mind-blowing. Is when I reached the end, I was like, oh god. I usually don't like this type of endings, but makes so perfect sense. It was so good that I don't know how to explain it. I typically don't like it, but it was so good, and I will definitely check more of João Tordo's books. I know some of them are different from these ones, and some of them are very not similar, but it goes from the same vibes. But I will definitely check it more of his books next year. One of my favorite books also in 2020 was an audiobook that I read from Peter Swanson, and it was 8 Perfect Murders. This story follows Malcolm, who is the owner of a thriller mystery bookshop, and a couple of years ago, before he was the owner, he wrote a blog post on the store blog about a list of what he considered 8 perfect murder books. 8 books that for him will have perfect murders without any doubt. We pass to the present and we see that someone is following his list. An FBI agent saw a connection between murders that doesn't have relationship at first, but when she puts him on the list that he made, it makes sense. In terms of books, we have the ABC Murders by Agatha Christie, Double Indemnity by James Cain, Stranger on the Train by Patricia Highsmith, Malice Aforethought by Francis Eyles, The Secret History by Donna Tartt, The Red House Mystery by A.A. Milne, The Drowner by John D. MacDonald, and Death Trap by Ira Levi. And these are the books that the killer is based off. And we will follow Malcolm as he's trying to discover why they pick his list, and we'll see that it's not so innocent as he thinks. I think Peter Swanson made this book so perfectly because it's not a detective story. It goes very much on the vibe of The Kind Worth Killing. He has a lot of twists and turns. Everything is not what it seems, because one of the twists comes very early on the book and I was like, okay, I was not expecting that. And then more or less in the middle, closer to the end, another twist comes out and I was like, I was not expecting that either. And then the killer is revealed and I was like, oh, yeah, right, I wasn't expecting that either. And how the character ends, it's amazing. It shows that humans are sometimes not what it seems, and sometimes we follow for try to revenge the world, and that's very much the vibe of The Kind Worth Killing also. I love how the story goes progressing. Sometimes can feel a little bit of stack. You don't proceed so much, but if you give it time, we will see that the twists come and the story goes unfolding, and there's a rhythm that goes very fast and but then slows a little bit and then goes fast again. And I think that dynamics makes the book entertaining and makes you want to keep reading, because you want to not skip the slow parts, but you want to reach to the other twist that will come and how to involve the stories. And I think the list is very well made. I think the only downtown from this book, and the only point that I want to point, is that there is spoilers for these books that I mentioned, the 8 books, and one more from Agatha Christie, The Assassination of Roger Ackroyd, I think that is the name. There is do the book and he explaining the murders and who is the murderer and how they killed. There will be spoilers, so if you want to read this book and you want to read the others, I will advise you to read first the others so you can go in this and don't be spoiled for the other book. But yeah, I really loved 8 Perfect Murders. It was an amazing introduction to Peter Swanson, and it's definitely one of the best books for me in 2020. Another book that goes on more or less the same category of the 8 Perfect Murders is Misery by Stephen King. As you can see, I take a lot of notes. More or less the blue ones are and the pink ones too, what Annie Wilkes does to Paul. I've read it from Stephen King. I enjoyed it very much. I didn't love it, but Misery, God, it's so perfect. Misery has the best villain ever. Ever. You cannot say that Annie Wilkes is less than any villain. She's twisted, she's manic, she's crazy, she doesn't care about your pain, she's mad. And I loved it. And the thing about this book that I really enjoy is that you go from it or a Pet Cemetery. There is a very fantastic story. You say, well, okay, it's scary, but it's never gonna happen. It's not, it's fiction. But this one can be real. There is maniacs who can do this, fans of celebrities who can kill them and can torture them because they are not happy what they are doing. This is much more plausible to happen, and maybe this is why this book is so amazing. Annie Wilkes' torture, it's just, there are scenes when he has to drink water from the floor because she's just mad at him because he did something, and so yeah, you want the pills, he drink the water from which I cleaned the floor, which is disgusting. A lot of heavy scenes that sensitive readers cannot handle so much, but I loved it. Annie is twisted, and I think the end of the book shows perfectly what would happen, because it doesn't end when he's saved. It ends with him fighting through the nightmares and fighting through the problems, that PTSD that she made him. She twisted his mind. In the beginning we see that he becomes very twisted, and it was so good. I don't know much more what to say. I really recommend if you are looking for a thriller, and I won't say this is a good start on Stephen King. I think it's a different genre. If you didn't like It, Pet Sematary, Carrie, give a chance to Misery, because Misery is different and it's one of the best thrillers, and Annie Wilkes is the best villain that you will find in literature, because the way she works, it's amazing. The way she was written is amazing. I totally recommend Misery for this. Go check it, please. Okay, and the last book that I really want to talk about and make my 2020 top books was 19 Minutes by Jodi Picoult. You will see in this channel I'm a very huge fan of Jodi Picoult. One of my favorite books of all time is from her. It's House Rules. This one goes not to my favorite of all times. It goes from my favorites of 2020 and maybe for my favorites of all time, but not above House Rules. But in this book, you can see the cover. The cover has nothing to do with the book. The book is about a school shooting. So we have a character named, I don't recall his name. It's Peter. I think it's Peter, who is a teenage boy who is bullied his entire life. He was bullied by his own brother also. And in one day, in 19 minutes, he decides to perform a school shooting, killing a lot of people, injuring a lot of people. And we will see the different characters through past and future, how they will handle Peter's trial. This book means a lot to me because it tackles the issue of bullying, and bullying is yet a very present issue nowadays. You cannot be foolish, but you cannot be fooled that bullying doesn't exist and it's not bad. Yes, it is. A lot of school shootings come from people who are bullied, who suffer from bullying, and decide that a way to finish the bullying is killing the persons who are doing the aggressions. It's not the way to deal with it, but it's the last resort they have. And you have the other side, that people suicide to erase the pain. This book tackles all that, talks about the problems with bullying, how persons are. It tackles toxic relationships. We have here a very aggressive and manipulative and even forced relationship between two characters who is important to the story. We see Peter talking in trial and showing the evidence with the lawyer. We have the family of the ones who are shooting, but also the family of the shooter who suffers prejudice for the people while they were absent of his life, because there were a lot of focus on his older brother sometimes, and even see how it can help him. I think it's an important book for everyone to read because it will make you understand that bullying is not okay. Bullying can have consequences and can be taking your own life or losing your mind and perform a school shooting. So Jodi has this magnificent force of producing books that talk about issues that are important to us. You have issues like the autism with House Rules, My Sister Keepers, who tackles the importance, the issue of creating a kid who is comfortable to another one just to be his donor. We have this one, and this one is amazing. It's definitely an amazing book, and it's worth reading. It's not a romance. I would say it's a contemporary. Because it's a contemporary, it still happens nowadays. And if we talk about other things like racism, about sexual discrimination, sexual assault, bullying is also a topic that we should talk. And 19 minutes, it's a great way to talk about it because you will show the consequences, will show how embarrassing can be to be bullied. It touched me a lot because I was bullied and I saw what it suffered and I felt what I felt. But I never reached that point of neither extremes, of killing the others or killing myself, because I have a family and friends who help me. But sometimes you don't have an option, and you still have options. We see here professors who look away from the circumstances. We see the popular kids getting away. It's not should happen this, and it's revolting to hear a book like this and being so factual for me. I felt so much the pain that he felt, the issues that he has to come. But I had the lucky. But some people are not lucky enough to survive and to have the capability and the family that I had and the friends that I had. It's an amazing book. I definitely recommend it. If you are looking for a book from Jodi, House Rules and this one are the best. Check it out, please. And be sure to discuss this with others because it deserves to be read. Definitely. So guys, these were my favorite books of 2020. Tell me in the comments which books were your favorites. If you read any of those, I will be happy to chat with you and try to show me books that you find were your best for this year. I'll try to see if I read them, if I have them, if I'll plan to read in next year. One of the next videos will be my most disappointed books. You can see books that I was expecting to be much more than they weren't. So please check it out, the next videos and the ones that are already in the channel. I'll post videos every Tuesday, Thursday, and sometimes on Saturday. So I see you guys in the next video. Bye.